Dear Kevin, I am your big fan from China. Recently I've been struggling against TVZ, which I believe that Zerg is just so imbalanced. I tired to improve my TVZ skills, so I had this replay with my friend. Since he promised to have a macro game, I decided no scout and early 3CC with Hellion and Banshee. This is just, the concept here is great, okay? This guy struggles in TVZ, so he wants to play some games TVZ with his friend. And then he also says, do not do any early game aggression. This is not how you improve. You improve by actually playing a real game. Like, you could have also told your opponent to not build any banelings. I'm sure your TVZ would have looked a lot better in practice. Oh, sorry. Let me continue with the thing. At the early in this game, I managed to do some harassment by the Hellions. He lost 9 drones and a lots of links without losing any of my units. I even didn't lose a single unit in the first 6 minutes. Well, I do lost all of my Hellions and one of the Banshees on the next harassment, but also killed 7 drones. I thought that his economic must be terrible, so I started to produce Widow Mines. He magically created 18 banelings towards my natural, and I tried my best, but still lost 12 SCVs. Even though he lost a bunch of drones, it seems like useless to the Zerg. Ling Bane are still all over the map. Every single time I wanted to push out there will be his army attacking my third base. My micro was much better than him, that only sacrifice little marauders can destroy a lots of banelings, and the mines also did a lots of damage. Then here comes the Ultralisk. I destroy almost the whole army of the Zerg and one of his bases, by only lost 2 barracks. But when I go through the map, there's more Ultralisks from every direction. I know my macro is not good enough, but so does he. It must be the IMBA race help him to win. Isn't it, Captain? Name Jerry, race Zerg, League Diamond, server China. This man, Jerry, managed to actually fill in the incorrect race on the form, so we're off to a racing start already. I wish you lots of luck playing a game as difficult as StarCraft 2 if you're struggling with a Google form and what your race actually is. But we'll forget about that. Jerry here is the Terran. His actual complaint was a bit all over the place. I think it had something to do with the economy, maybe. Like, he said that he killed loads of units, loads of drones, and he barely lost anything. His trades always were fantastic, and his opponent just kept having bigger armies. So there was no real one big complaint, but more just the trend of that the Zerg eco might just be too good, and yeah, you know, the classic one of they just reproduce too quickly. We're gonna have a look at that to see if that's true. Jerry here is the Green Terran, and he's playing against his friend, YKHD, a Zerg player. So, kind of exciting. I'm kind of excited here for Jerry, and I'm believing this to be a banger of a game. I'm really looking forward to the triple CC opener as well without the scout, because he knows his friend won't all in. This is like doing a magic trick where you stack the deck. We had this guy in my high school. This is not a made-up story. I know I lie a lot, but this is true. We had a guy in my high school who would come up to you with a pre-stacked deck and then do a card trick. And then after he did the card trick, and we'd be like, hey, do it again, he'd need to do the deck again and stack it in a certain order. It's like, it's not a very good trick if you need to prepare every single time, and it's obvious that you need to prepare every single time. So he could do this trick once every lunch break. We'd ask him to do the trick every single day because we thought it was hilarious. He actually later on turned out to be a pretty decent magician, and I guess everyone starts out pretty weak. That's kind of what Jerry feels like here, you know? He comes up with a magic trick, except in order to do the trick, everything needs to be perfect, you know? It's like, pick a card, and you pick one card from him. It's like, no, pick the top card. He's like, all right, Jerry. I'll pick the top card for you, Jerry. I know you're a terrible magician, but here we go again. We'll see what type of tricks Jerry has up his sleeve here, though. So for the build order, actually looks good. Especially for a Platinum player. It's going to be opening up with a Reaper into Marine, Factory is quick, Reactor should start immediately. This is good stuff. Wait, he's not Platinum, he's Diamond. I'm impressed though. 3300 MMR on the China server, and this is a good build order. He's going to decide to do a little bit of damage. Gets the first drone. Yep, gets a drone as well. Control is good, macro is good behind this. CC is going up. It's gonna start rallying into the gas, I hope, because you did get a second gas, Jerry. Kinda wanna start saturating that gas. No. It is what it is. It is what it is. Orbitals going down as well. Honestly, this start out of Jerry here is just looking solid. If this was a game on Rank Roulette, and I would have to guess what level this is, I would say so far this looks absolutely like a Masters 2, Masters 1 build order. You know, everything is kind of tight. There's not a whole lot of money being floated. Sure, there's a little bit, but that just happens with this build. You know, it's not the end of the world. Moves back his Reaper before speed finishes as well. I'm kind of happy with how Jerry is playing this, and that is rare, especially when it comes to Chinese games. I've seen a lot of Chinese games in my time, and I always enjoy the Chinese games very much, but they're very rarely are they standard. The opener never is normal. The follow-up never is normal. The accompanying balance complaint form never is normal either. Like there's always some special twist in there, you know. But my man Jerry, first of all, has a very British and American name, and also doesn't play much like his fellow Chinese players do on the Chinese server, especially on this level. Decides to keep the Hellions home for now. That is a little bit odd. So there is the two main openers that we have in TVZ, I would say. We have the third CC before second gas, and then we have the third CC after second gas. With the third CC after second gas, your goal is to deal as much damage as you can with your early game units, because you have less economy than you usually do. We see Jerry kind of playing this like he went for quick triple CC. He left a lot of Hellions at home, hasn't really been able to deny any of the creep yet, or try to spar with some of these Zerglings, or well, try to burn some of these Zerglings. It's not really sparring if one guy has a flamethrower and the other guy just has claws and wings. It's not a fair fight, but generally you want to be poking forward, looking for damage, looking for Zergling skills, maybe shooting down a queen, something like that. Banshee is on the way. Like, the build order is pretty tight, I actually have to admit that, but the unit control has been mediocre. Now, it's gonna get a bunch of links here. Third barracks has been delayed for no real reason. Should be at the same time as this as this factory building the reactor. That way you can swap the barracks and the factory, and then you have two reactors producing marines while you're doing this opener. This is a really good start here. This is a really good start for Jerry, and Jerry didn't lie. He said, Kevin, in the first 6 minutes I didn't lose any units, which, to be fair, isn't that odd, as he didn't send them out to fight either. That's like Switzerland bragging that they haven't had any war casualties in the past two centuries. They also were neutral in every single major war that was fought. So yeah, it's kind of what Jerry did here, you know? He moves out once at like 520, doesn't lose anything, and says, tada, I'm clean. The best unit control in the game. Follow-up is kind of sloppy here. You don't want to be getting mines yet at this point. You really want to increase that marine production. So your first two medevacs, when they pop out, can immediately go with 16 marines. Now, we're going to just replay that here for a second. So Jerry has a very good early game, okay? He killed 1,300 resources without losing anything. That is good. He has had good trades so far, okay? This is absolutely brilliant. I love that. I absolutely do love that. Now he's gonna send them in. And he sees all these links and he decides, well, I'm just gonna lose them. Kills 3 workers. So he lost 700 resources here and killed, what, 275? That's a bad trade. Now, what did Jerry say in his little thing? I do lost all of my Hellions and one of the Banshee on the next harassment, but I also killed 7 drones. I thought that his economic must be so terrible, so I start to produce Widow Mines. Those are the 2 sentences that I want to focus on here. Now, this doesn't make a lot of sense. The first thing here is that just because you have good trades overall doesn't mean that all the moves you made were correct. Like, this is kind of like looking at this game and going, hey, I lost 6 Hellions and he lost way more, so all the moves I did must have been good. No, the first moves you did were very good, but afterwards you basically completely threw it away. It makes no sense. It's like if you're playing a football match and in the first half you're up 6-0 and you end up winning 6-4, you could still say, well, we scored a lot of goals and we won the game, that was good, but you still made a lot of mistakes in the second half. And that's kind of what happened here for Jerry. And he kind of tried to play it off like it was fine. Like, it's never fine to lose your Hellions. And I doubt this is actually enough damage to really say, hey, I'm glad that I lost those Hellions. No, it's like, you don't really want to trade out Hellions, because Hellions are super important for the thing that Jerry complains about later, and that is run-bys. The Hellions and the Banshees that you use in the early game to harass lose their value as a harassment tool later on in the game, but they're really good at stopping your opponent's harass. Banshees, Hellions, great at dealing with Ling run-bys, great at dealing with small amounts of Baneling run-bys as well, so you generally want to be keeping them alive, as they allow you to move out with your main army. Without Hellions, it just becomes really hard to move out with your main army. Behind this, Jerry also is just floating kind of an enormous amount of units. He's also getting kind of blasted here by slow Banelings, which isn't great. So he loses 8 workers, and his opponent is actually really far ahead. Like this entire sequence, when I read this in Jerry's little book that he wrote to me, it felt like he was in a great spot after this because he did so much economic damage. He killed 17 workers, lost all of his Hellions, and his opponent killed 12 workers and lost a bunch of Banelings. His opponent is on 70 workers right now, and Jerry is on 40. I had another sentence, by the way, that I did want to focus on in this little imbalance complaint for him. He said, I did so much economic damage that I wanted to transition into Widow Mines. And when I read that, I kind of glossed over this and was like, that makes a lot of sense, because he said it with such confidence. But these two parts of the sentence are not connected at all. It is like saying, I ate meat yesterday, so I performed very well on the stock market. Or I did 5 push-ups this morning, and thus it started raining. Like, if you say it with a lot of confidence, you might be able to trick a lot of people, but saying that you did a lot of economic damage, so you went into Widow Mines, makes no sense. Dealing economic damage doesn't mean that getting faster Widow Mines is a better call. Like, you want to be getting Marines first. You want a reactor on 2 barracks and a tech lab on 1 barracks, getting stim and later on combat shield while you're producing your first 2 medevacs. Getting a lot of mines early on makes no sense, because the ratio of mine-marine is very important, and there always should be way more Marines rather than way more mines. Right now, against this attack, you had like 6 mines and 8 Marines. That should be like 16 Marines and 2-3 mines, and you would have a way better time defending your natural here. I just wanted to plant the flag there, where everyone could see it, because he almost got away with it. I put a mental note that I did want to call him out on that, and I almost forgot about it, because he said it with such confidence. He's quite an elegant writer, Jerry is, and he got in my mind with his poetic sentences, and he almost got away with it, but not quite. I caught you there, Jerry. 1-0 for me. But keep trying. So in Jerry's mind right now, he's light years ahead. He threw away 6 Hellions to kill 17 workers total. Sure, he hasn't been producing SCVs for a while, and he's down 30 workers at this point, but in Jerry's mind, he's still very far ahead. And honestly, he's up in army supply and he's up in upgrade. He's only up in army supply because his opponent decided to not produce any units, even though there is 19 larvae at this point. So a little bit of a surprising tactic here. Now, we see this Ling run by, not actually doing very much, okay? Do note that this Ling run by has been dealt with. I just want to show this to you guys, okay? This army that just moved back for no reason. It moved back because Jerry only uses a single control group, and it isn't even really a control group, no, it is the F2. Jerry saw a threat at his 3rd base, F2'd back home, and said, oh, these run-bys force my army back. No, Jerry, the fact that you can't multitask is what's forcing your army back. The lack of your ability to have more than one control group is forcing your army back. The fact that you lost all of your Hellions in the early game is what forced your army back. There's 3 reasons, and none of them have anything to do really with the run-by. The run-by seems to be the reason, but the actual reason is your incompetence. Now, these mines do trade well with these Banelings, I have to admit. These are good trades. Not the greatest hit of that Baneling, and this Bane... Oh well, this mine is also gonna get a decent trade. A lot of Banelings are still alive, and they actually start walking into Marauders, exactly like Jerry told us. This is great, by the way, the fact that the Banshee is just in this army. And not doing anything else, like not patrolling an area, just in the army, no cloak. Stim is being... He actually isn't using F2, by the way, so he's just using a single control group. He's... because this army isn't moving. Now, at this point, Jerry's had a couple of pretty decent trades. However, he's completely unaware of the fact that he's still mining less than his opponent and is just generally down in workers. His opponent has been casually teching into Hive at the 10-minute mark while floating 2k resources. And this is something that I find hilarious, that often happens, but Jerry didn't do. Very often, especially Terrence complain about this, they'll send me a message like, hey Kevin, like, this freaking Zerg was floating 3k minerals and I couldn't even kill him. And they're not realizing that by saying that, it doesn't show that Zerg is imbalanced, but it just shows that you're incompetent. If your opponent can get away with floating 3k minerals, that is just bad by you. That means your build orders aren't tight, you're terrible at killing people, and you wouldn't be able to smell an opportunity, like if it hit you in the face. This is like Steve Jobs trying to sell you Apple in like 2007 for $10, and you going, 10 sounds a bit expensive. It's like, mate, like, it's already a big company, you know? No cancel on the command center. Some Banelings being wasted there in the orbital as well. And honestly, after seeing these trades, I understand why Jerry does believe that he's ahead. I would also believe that I was ahead if I had seen these trades. So far, by the way, Jerry has only lost 22 workers. Now you might say, only 22? Yes, only 22. We're 12 minutes into the game, and he's on 53 workers. If you're on 53 workers, 12 minutes into the game, I'm expecting you to have lost like 80 workers at this point, okay? There's no reason for you to be this low in workers. 12 minutes into the game as a Terran, who also has mules. Fort base is extremely delayed. He has one too many barracks for production. But, well, actually, he has 4 too many barracks for production. So the way you usually work in TVZ is that you get 5 barracks, 2 factory, then you get a fort base, then you add the 3 barracks. He got these barracks after he built the Fort CC, and his Fort CC got cancelled. And also, if you are floating money and you can't spend your money, I always say it's completely fine to add more barracks. I'd rather have you spend your money than have it in the bank and it not being used whatsoever. It's better to just spend it in a barracks. And then once you get better, you can kind of scale down that amount of barracks. So you might want to make fun of someone for that, or you might want to say, hey, that's incorrect. But actually, if you're playing at this level and you have trouble spending the money, no, that's completely fine. Now, this is the magical fight that Jerry told us about in his legendary poem that he wrote to us. He said, I killed 2 bases. Or he said, what did he say? No, I'm gonna need to read this again. God. I want to push out. I destroy almost the whole army of the Zerg and one of his bases, but only lost 2 barracks. He kind of romanticized how this fight went, I feel like. Because, once again, he didn't really lie or not speak the truth, because he did take out his opponent's base, and he lost 3 barracks and like 6 SCVs, and the Zerg forced a lift off. So it wasn't completely accurate, but he did kill a large part of the Zerg army, and he took out a base. The problem is that this was the 6th base of the Zerg, while Jerry was busy losing his 3rd base. Zerg was still mining with 100 workers over 5 bases, and Jerry also didn't really kill the entire army. So it's a little bit disgenuine, I think, to say that you took out a base and hardly took any damage at home. Like, he hasn't been mining from this 3rd base for the past minute now. It's not like this was a super clean trade either. It's not like he just destroyed the Zerg army and still maxed. No, he's like barely at 140 supply. Doesn't have the minerals to start 3-3 upgrades. Like, he's in a bad spot. I wonder if Jerry watched the replay back of this game, and I have a feeling he didn't, because the situations aren't really as he sketches them. You know, this is rewriting history. Usually, history is written by the winner, but somehow Jerry managed to get his hand on a pen and write down this well, this epic war story. Takes out the rocks. Jerry always hated rocks. Hated them so much as a kid as well. He's gonna take out a lot of these ultras actually. This is really good for Jerry, and the army value, or well, the army supply is actually in Jerry's favor at this point. He's controlling. There's no mines in this army, and he is floating 1400 minerals, but there's actually some potential here, especially if this is off Korea. Trying to get to the medevacs by wading through the, well, walking through the banelings. That would be the word that I was looking for. Slashing his way through the banelings into the medevacs. Didn't quite work. A lot of the units did end up falling. We still just have a very nice income here for the Zerg at this point. Mine should burrow. Well, don't burrow. Still gonna get the Ultralisk. And at this point, you could say that, yes, Jerry is behind. And he's not in a great spot, but he still has a decently sized army. His opponent is making a lot of mistakes and taking a lot of bad fights. Like, let's be real here. His opponent is down 14k in the resources lost. That's generally not a good thing. His opponent also keeps kind of move commanding links and other units into his army. Oh, for a second I was afraid that Jerry didn't have a hotkey for burrowing these Widow Mines, but did manage to get it here. We're going to see some decent kiting as well. And once again, he's going to take a fight that honestly isn't bad. Like, none of these fights have been bad. Well, that's unfortunate. Loses the planetary. Doesn't have a backup CC either. 3-3 isn't quite done yet. Like, the fights haven't been bad. He's just been mining a lot less. Because while Jerry was busy killing his opponent's 6th base, he wasn't mining from his own 3rd. We have another little attack here. Jerry once again, probably feeling like an absolute multitasking god, as he sends 6 medevacs to the left side. Takes out the 7th base of his opponent. Meanwhile at home, he's valiantly defending against this Ling Ultra run by as well. Actually gonna be able to dish out a lot of damage. That's all good. It's actually just kind of dead, isn't it? I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking, Jerry, why are we still in the game? Then I see the Zerg lose 8 Ultralisk against 10 Marauders. And I kind of understand why he stays in as well. Like, it's like a double-edged sword, you know? It's like, you don't want to waste your and your friend's time, but you also don't want to let him get away with taking this type of fight. So, I think at this point, if you know your opponent has this bottom base and took this base, you kind of assume that at least these 5 were taken. So you're playing against 5 base while you're mining from 2 patches in your natural and 1 patch in your main. It's a little bit optimistic and perhaps even naive to believe that you still have a chance in that type of game, but then again, I think the word naive and optimistic might be the 2 words that describe the Terran population as a whole the best. I mean, if there's one race that likes to stay in games after the game is completely lost, it definitely would be the Terran race. I like that Jerry leaves without GG, by the way, here. That is a big move as well. Imagine being Jerry's friend and getting the message from Jerry. It's like, Jerry just lost 3 games on the ladder against Zerg, and he goes, "Hey, buddy, you wanna play some custom games?" And you're, "Yeah, sure. That sounds good. I have some builds I want to try." And Jerry's like, No. Not allowed to rush, all right? And then it was like, all right, no rush, whatever. You play a macro game, perfect macro game, like very good macro, economy, many bases, no creep threat, but whatever, you win the game. Then he leaves without GG and blocks you on Skype or, well, the Discord or whatever people use these days, Zoomers. Jerry, not the greatest friend. All right, let's just think about this game here for a second, and let's divide this game into a couple of sections. So the first one is going to be game awareness. I'm gonna name this game awareness. Just the reality that the game is in and being able to connect to that reality. Okay? Jerry seems to not be bad at this. He just seems to lack this capability whatsoever. He is out of touch with reality. Jerry kills 4 drones with his Hellions, and he believes he should be able to move command across the map and collect his free MMR. That is not quite how it works. If you kill 7 drones and you don't build SCVs for 12 minutes straight, most of the time you're gonna find yourself in a bad situation, which is also what happened in this game. You're constantly unaware of the position you're actually in. You seem pretty delusional about what you need to do in order to win and what your opponent needs to do in order to win. If you're down 50 workers and you don't realize that, or if you're staying in a game where your opponent has 8 bases and you're mining off 3 mineral patches total with 20 workers and you believe you still have a chance, it might be checked to get that, you know, just a check at your local doctor's office to make sure that everything's okay in the, you know, in the brain up there. So for that, you're going to get a massive it's not there stamp. Just game awareness is not there. Then the second thing is the micro. Now, honestly, not too disappointed with your micro. For your level, you controlled your units fairly well. The splits weren't great, but you managed to get good fights throughout the game. We can see that in the resource lost. You end the game up 13,000. I'm counting that correctly. Yeah, 13,000 resources, even though you have technically a worse army, as you didn't get any ghosts or a lot of mines or a lot of liberators, while your opponent was on Baneling, Ling, Ultra. Like, that is impressive, and I'll applaud you for that. So for that, you get a thumbs up from me. And those are rare, so put it on your wall or something like that. Then the third thing I want to talk with you about is macro. Your first 4 to 5 minutes were fantastic. Actually, great. For a diamond level player, this is what I want to see. You follow the build order and you got it right. Right until the point where you needed to build a 3rd barracks and swap that with the factory. After that, it felt like you just fell apart. The moment you started controlling your units on the map, you just stopped doing anything at home. You didn't build SCVs, like the units that you're supposed to build didn't come out. The amount of units that you had felt kind of low as well, and the order of the buildings didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense as well. So on that, I'm also gonna have to give you the stamp that it's just not good, Jerry. I like you, and I like the, you know, the story that you sent me, the page of text, but it's just not good enough, Jerry. We need more than this in order to compete with Zerg players. So for that, you're gonna get a suck as well on this little midsection. That leaves us with 2 negative reviews and 1 thumbs up, which is more like a participation trophy, you know? Like, it wasn't great, but you didn't suck too hard either. So put it all together, and you, Jerry, you just suck. Zerg isn't imbalanced. You're bad. I'm sorry. It's the way of the world. It's the way of the world. All right, my friends. That's going to be it for today's episode of Is It IMBA or Do I Suck? As sadly Jerry sucked, and that's okay. Big up to the Zerg player though in this game. He did pretty well. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Massive shout out to all the Patreon supporters who've been supporting on Patreon. That is appreciated. And I hope to see you all next time for more videos and other things. Leave a like, subscribe. Bye bye.